Welcome. All right. Well, let's start. So it's 8 o'clock my time. So we're going to get started. Welcome to week number 1 of the unofficial 2020 Magento Certification Challenge. I am so excited to have every one of you here. What I want to focus on today is setting a right attitude, a right perspective on what it's going to take to become Magento certified. That's my goal. And we're going to take just a few minutes. It's not going to be a 2-hour long thing, but we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to delve into some really critical information, I think, that will put you on the path to success. Wow, everybody's coming in here. We've got Bulgaria, Argentina, Brazil, India, Ukraine, Denmark. Wow. This is Serbia. Wow, this is great. And so as we all gather from across the world, we are here to learn about what does it take to become Magento certified. And I need this last JavaScript certification. It's been something that's been bugging me for a while. I look at it and I say, I need to do it, and I've not had the opportunity, taken the time to do it. So I figured, hey, let's gather my friends, all of you, and let's sit down and work through these certifications together because I want to see you certified. I want to see you have the associate developer behind your name, professional developer, whatever the certification is. I want to see you do it. So let's dig in today as we seek to understand what does it take to become Magento certified. All right, wow, Lithuania, India, again, this is great. All right, so I think the first question we need to address, and I know this could come as a bit of a mental challenge because I know for me, I've been planning toward a certification. I'm working toward it, and then do I change that? So I hesitantly bring this up, but just something to consider. Here is the lineup of Magento certifications. I am going for this one here, indicated in green, right here. Which certification is right for me? So I'm going for this one indicated in green, the JavaScript developer. The prices range for the certification itself from $195 to $295. In fact, they just raised their prices literally last night in the meetup that I talked at last night in India. There was the prices were still the 2019 prices. Literally overnight, they changed. So we have these 8 certifications. So the question is, which certification is right for me? Which certification is right for you? Now, I happen to have all of them except for order management and JavaScript developer. I'm not going to get order management just because I get to build an order management application. So JavaScript developer is what I am going for. Now, question is, what should you go for? Now, hear me out on this and just think this through. But I noticed there was a lot of you that said that you were going for the professional developer certification. Now, I obviously don't know whether you've already passed any other certifications, but I want you to consider, just think about, is that the right one to start out with? I'm going to put the professional developer as probably a 9 out of 10 difficulty. So 10 meaning like the most difficult test in the Magento world that we could possibly have. And 9 being pretty darn close to that. So we have these two, so we have the professional developer is probably a 9 out of 10. And unfortunately, many people I see take it for the first time fail it. And I leave it up to you. Here's my thinking on this. If you go ahead and start with the associate developer, it's pretty much the same content, the same areas that it covers, just at a little more basic level. But the associate developer will allow you to understand how to study for Magento test. It will allow you to get a good foundation of knowledge when it comes to understanding the Magento application. Then you go pass it. And the nice thing is you get that certification you're under your belt versus going and taking the professional developer 2, maybe 3 times, failing the first 2, then finally getting it. You unfortunately miss out on quite a little money there. So it's just something to consider. Feel free to continue with a professional developer. Come on in. Okay. These shows that the audio is a little bit out of sync here. So I will have to look at that and take and see what's going on. So, but regardless, consider taking the professional developer second and the associate developer first. I understand the associate developer sounds elementary or basic, sounds junior, but because it kind of is the small sibling to the professional developer. However, I suggest very strongly that you consider the associate developer first, and then you consider the professional developer. I think you will be set up for much better success. So the path I would suggest here is start with the associate developer, work up, then take either the front-end developer if that suits what you're working on there. Maybe consider the professional developer, the professional developer plus, etc. But or JavaScript. So start with associate and then work up from there. Some people who are exclusively front-end can start with a front-end developer. It's a little bit more difficult than the associate, but it's not, I'm not going to say it's excruciating. So just consider some of those things. I want to see you start down the right track. So if you say you're going to go with the professional developer, great. But I want to have you realize how difficult this test is, because it was difficult for me. Very, very, very difficult for me. So, I could put some more varies in front of that because it was excruciating. So I suggest starting with associate and work up from there. Then you get 2 certifications under your name. All right, the solution specialist. For those of our friends here that are not a developer, the solution specialist will be the right one for you. And we're going to I'm going to cover some study techniques this week, but we're going to especially dive into it next week. The solution specialist is, I'm going to put it at a 9 out of 10 difficulty. Just because it is so difficult. It's all about practical experience. And actually, all of these tests are about practical experience. And we're going to, again, I'm building out a bunch of information that we're going to talk about as time goes on about certifications. But I'm preparing you, what is it going to take to pass this test? What kind of questions are on there? That sort of thing. But the solution specialist is going to be a 9 out of 10. Of course, if you've been boots on the ground, if you've been working hard in the Magento admin panel, being this intermediary, this person interacting between a merchant and a developer for maybe 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, you're probably going to have a good shot at passing it without too much study. But for most of the people that I see going to take this test, it's very, very difficult. A lot of people have less than a year of experience, and it's not easy. So, that is the lineup of certifications. Hopefully you have the one in front of you. Say, I'm going to do this one. And again, if it is professional developer, and you haven't taken associate yet, I would recommend to start with associate if possible. All right, now here is the idea that I would like to present to you today as far as our study regimen. And this is that the knowledge to pass a certification is worth 10 times the certification itself. I was kind of already alluding to that at the beginning of this video. The knowledge to pass this is exceptionally important. This is how you will pass the test. You will not pass the test unless you take, we're going to talk about this, consistent time to be able to work, to learn, to study, and to put effort into passing. And I've seen this over and over again. So I take X amount of time. Usually I'm writing a study guide. So, but actually, let me just put it this way. Let me back up a little bit. The reason I started giving my study guides out and then ultimately selling them to an extent was when the Magento actually started back in with the Magento 1 days. When I sat down to study for one of these tests, I remember that first test I took, I don't know how many hours. I literally went through the Magento Use Study Guide and built out, I don't know, it was 50 to 75 Word document pages of information about this. I went through one, hey there, good to see you. So I went through one at a time, each one of these bullet points, and I built this out. And then when I got to the solution specialist here for the Magento 2, I did the same thing, and then I shared it with everybody, and people were pretty excited about that. And then I continued. But that is how I gained my knowledge. And I look back and I see how my knowledge of Magento just greatly increased over the course of time, simply because I took so much time to study, to learn this information. Now, I have to say, you probably retain I'm guessing long term, you probably retain 25% of the information, of the knowledge that you study. However, I found that for the other 75%, there's a familiarity with it. And I find that I am much more likely to quickly catch on to what I was remembering or what this material was, as opposed to knowing exactly what it is, having that memory for long term. Maybe I'm sure some of you, maybe all of you, could remember at least 50%, maybe 75% for a long period of time. But I have found that there is somewhat of an attrition rate. Regardless, even that 25% is probably the most valuable, the most helpful information that you're going to learn, and it's going to stick with you. This knowledge, this information is so critical. I cannot underestimate this. This is how you will pass the test. But more importantly, this is how you will demonstrate to your peers that you are one smart person, how you interact with your merchants, and they think, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. And when you're talking with your manager or the CEO of your company, they're more likely to promote you simply because you have this knowledge that's very important. So this knowledge is what we're talking about, and we're going to see how we can get it. Okay, let's answer a couple questions here. Janice, is that how you pronounce your name? Yes, I would suggest, I think, so here's a couple of things, thoughts on this, and I'm glad you bring this up. One thing excuse me. One thing I have done a couple of times in the past is I have gone and just said, okay, I feel like I have a basic understanding of this subject. I'm going to go try taking the test. I think most of Magento tests have 5 takes that you can do. I'm going to go try taking this test, and then I am going to, if I pass it, great. If I fail it, well, then it means I need to study. So that is a route that you can take. I would suggest that the passing grade means that you have this knowledge already, which is pretty ideal. You don't have to take a whole bunch of extra time in studying if you already have it. But there's obviously the risk of, $200 or $300 US that might go down the drain if you fail this test. So it kind of depends on where you are at personally, if you are willing to take that risk, if you don't want to take that risk. But, either way works well. All right, so what study material are we going to look at here? And I think I'm hesitant in talking about this just because I don't, like I promised, I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch, because it's not. And so what I've done is I pulled together all the information here that of a place that that you can get information about studying. So the first one would be the Magento Dev Docs. If this is a developer related material, then study the Dev Docs. Actually, you know what? I forgot to put the most important one in here. I guess I'll leave it out for right now. The top of the line here. If you are studying for a Magento developer exam, the number one resource you need to study is the Magento core code. I cannot say that loud enough. Your number one resource is the Magento core code. And I don't know why, but I used to have this aversion myself to this. It's like, it's scary, it's big, it's unknown. And I found one of the biggest reasons why I viewed stuff as scary like this is because I didn't know it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how it worked together. And as such, I didn't want to get into it. But the Magento core code is your number one resource for passing this test. After all, that's what this test is about, the Magento core code. So I posted this in the Slack channel, and I will be making more links on our website about this. This last item here, the Associate Developer Project Guide. the reason I'm really excited about this is a free PDF. I don't know, it's like over 50 pages and a Git repository of code. The reason I'm so excited about this is because it teaches a candidate, someone who wants to take this test, how to go through and build a module where we dig into the Magento core code. We work through what does it take to build a module from point A to point Z using what I believe is best practices. So I could not be more excited about this. The Associate Developer Project Guide, again, it's free. And I'm hopeful once I get past this cold, I'll be recording videos, posting them to YouTube here. So not only will you have a PDF and a Git repository, which you can work from, you will also have videos of instruction as to how you can do this. So just remember, the Magento core code is your number one place for study. And I'm excited about this the Associate Developer Project Guide. It's like a study guide, but it's a project guide to walk you through some of these concepts. So if it's for non-developer test, i.e. the Solution Specialist test, that would be the Magento User Guide. Become familiar with it. But more importantly, that would be the Magento website itself, the Magento admin panel on Commerce. And that's one thing to note. The Solution Specialist is Commerce only. So, of course, there'll be some open source questions on there, but the user guide or the actual test itself covers a lot of Commerce information. So, all right, see here, and then study guide. So the Magento U has a study guide. Feel free to use that. And that's basically what I build our study guide out of. And so my goal with our study guides is we provide a lot of extra information about that. And so we've actually just released a new study guide for the Associate Developer, which combined with the Associate Developer Project Guide, I'm really excited about that. But of course, ours are available. But I did some searching and I found these other two resources. I can't necessarily say how good they are, but I know they're free and I know there's information there. So I have not worked through and reviewed how thorough they are, but there is a couple of options for study, what you can do. Hey, Charles, welcome. Come on in here. All right. So Asma has a question. Working on Magento 2 framework since 6 months, is it enough to think about the professional certificate? That is a good question. And my answer right now would be no, I don't think so. I would suggest going for the associate developer. I'm always gonna recommend associate developer first, especially if you have 6 months. If you have, say, a year and a half, maybe 2 years of experience on Magento development, Magento 2 development, absolutely. Go with the you can start with the professional, but in this case you're going to be much happier getting the associate developer test first, that certificate first, and then you go to the professional developer. Then you get 2 certificates behind your name, and that's always nice. All right, so this is the study material I would suggest. Work through it. And we're going to talk about specific study techniques as we continue on. So in 2 weeks, we'll have some more information, more knowledge about how to do this. So, but I want to share with you 2 key points that I think are going to radically improve your chances of success, of course, of passing this test. Number 1, be consistent. Be consistent. I cannot state this enough. You see, I'm a little bit passionate about all this stuff because I am. I want to see people successful, and that's why I'm doing this. I mean, it's free. I'm not making any money out of it. I just want to see you successful. That is entirely what I want to see, and I'm really excited about that. I think it will help you be successful, and that's why, of course, I'm doing this. But be consistent. And what I suggest right now is that you take a moment and write it down that I will study for 15 minutes for 4 days a week. In fact, I'm going to do that right here. Just so I am on it myself. Write a personal commitment to yourself that you will study for 4 days a week, at least 15 minutes a day. Make that a commitment. If you want to break that commitment, that's fine. That's up to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down here on a piece of paper in front of me that I will study for 4 days a week, at least 15 minutes a day, ideally 30 minutes. All right, so I hope you've taken a moment to do that. Write it down. Write it down, because this commitment that you have just made to yourself, you don't want to break it. You need to keep your word to yourself as you go through this. But consistency is probably the most important ingredient to being able to pass a test. Hey, Matthew, welcome. Come on in. It's great to have you here. So, oh yes, Matthew is probably one of the brightest minds in the Magento space. I've just his knowledge blows me away, and so him saying how tough the professional developer certification is, he was just saying here that he's still nervous about it, and that's, my friends, that's what I'm trying to prepare you for. That professional developer certification is really, really tough. That's it's just be thinking about that, because if you decide you're going to go for that first, just understand you probably will fail, and I don't want a single one of you to fail. So, with this, study first thing in the morning, before you open up Slack, before you answer emails and have all the craziness of the day happen. Start studying. Just get that in 15 to 30 minutes a day. Ideally, 15 minutes on your watch, and talk to your manager. See if you can get 15 minutes on his clock. Right at the very beginning of your morning, come in 15 minutes early and study every morning. Well, 4 days a week, give yourself a break. But 15 to 30 minutes a day. And basically what I'm going to suggest is work through the study guide line by line by line. That's literally what it's going to take in order to pass this test. As you're working through this study guide, be thinking, how can I demonstrate my knowledge on this? How can I dig into the Magento core to find out what this is talking about? Remember, breakpoints in Xdebug are your best friend. Set breakpoints all over the place. Rerun the execution. Hit that stop button, that red square in PHP Storm, the IDE there. Hit that. Set more breakpoints. Run through this process again, over and over and over again. And this is something that has been really important to me, and it's been something I've struggled with. The whole concept of, as I'm going through a certification, the study guide, I'm tempted to say, this is really difficult. I don't want to get into this. For example, UI components. I mean, if I did a raise of hands here, UI components, anybody sound like this is a fun, great idea? Let's dig into it. Yeah, let's have a party. Let's have a UI component party. No, I don't think anybody of you would raise your hands. It's just not, it's not enjoyable. But what you have to do, and I also call this being curious. I don't have a slide up on this. But what excuse me. What you have to do is you have to be curious. So if there's some subject you don't feel like studying, that means you have to study it. In fact, that means your familiarity with that subject is probably less than it should be. And in fact, that means that anytime you have one of those type of subjects, those lines in the study guide, it's and you don't want to study it, it probably means that you're going to fail on that specific point. And I don't want a single point for you to fail on. So you have to have this inner determination. Every single question that you have on this study guide, you must answer it. Be curious. Get in there to ask yourself these questions. Don't skip over a section because it seems too hard. Get in there and spend whatever time it takes so you feel like you are an expert on this. You could go to Stack Exchange and you could write you could write excellent information on how to answer this question, on how to help somebody else out in this department. That's the type of knowledge that you have to gain from each one of these, every line in the study guide. And that's how you're going to pass. I can guarantee you. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm taking the JavaScript developer test. And my study starts on Monday morning. To be frank, there's a lot of stuff on there I am not looking forward to. I would not consider myself a front-end developer, but I feel like I need to get this. So I am going to dig into it. There's going to be a lot of talk about UI components, and there's going to be a lot of talk about Knockout.js, but what am I going to lose by learning about this. I'm going to be a faster developer. I'm going to be more valuable to the people I work with. If you're, of course, I'm self-employed, but if you are working for a manager, they're going to be like, wow, Matthew or Deepak or Chris or Asma or Sukumar or Mahendra, these people can get this task done fast. This is incredible. And you might be promoted to a tech lead. You might be promoted to an architect. Can't hurt there. So all of that. I see a couple of comments, couple of questions coming in. Let's back up and answer a couple of these questions because the next one is Q&A, question and answer. So let's see if there's any questions that we have. And is enough 30 minutes to study. So I put out 30 minutes as I think that's an achievable, attainable goal for most people. If you can spend extra time, especially for a more difficult certification, I would suggest doing that. But again, my goal is 30 minutes, something that is achievable, something that I can achieve myself. And I hope that you're able to take the same time. We do. So my goal was with this, we have a quarter. We have approximately 3 months to study for this test. So you have to try to take the study guide, blow it up into however many weeks that represents, like 15 weeks or so. And then what I would suggest is setting like goals for every week. I'm going to get through this section. I'm going to get through this section. I'm going to get through this section. And then hopefully, maybe 30 minutes is enough. Hopefully, if you find it's not enough, invest the extra time. You will never regret the extra time spent in that. Order management guide. So at this point, I have no plans to do that. So it takes a lot. I mean, a huge amount of time to write a study guide, and I love every minute of it. But for me personally, I have no experience in order management, and so while we possibly could write it and we possibly could pass the test, I don't think it's going to be as effective as it needs to be. Plus, I'm not thinking there's going to be too many people out there, from what I've heard, as far as emails that I get, people saying, "Hey, where's the order management guide?" I haven't heard of too many people asking for that. So if that is the case, maybe we can figure something out. But until then, I'm not planning on doing an order management guide. Vishal, I am a Magento 2 certified front-end developer. Can I go for JavaScript certification? Absolutely, do it. Hey, we'll be studying together on this, so that'll be great. Yeah, I would definitely. I would view the front-end and the associate developer as the entry point, the doorway to the additional Magento certification. So front-end developer, go for JavaScript. Let's do it. All right, Sukumar. Yes, that's good advice. Absolutely. So basically, Sukumar is saying to start with a project, learn, get the basics down. And that's where this associate developer project guide, at least for the associate developer test, is so important. Because remember, these tests are all practical. And if you can get in there and you can write this code, you can understand how this stuff works, you are going to pass it. And honestly, I have a feeling if you take this time and you work through these steps as I am sharing with you today, I think you're going to get to the end of this. You're at the end of March. You're going to take this test, and you will be amazed at how easy it is to take this test. That's my goal. That's my hope for each one of you. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention is please today go purchase your voucher and get that date put on the calendar for taking this test, whether it's March 31st, whether it's the middle of March. And I know some of you are taking it in Meet Magento coming up end of January. That's a little bit tight, but I know you also get a really good discount on that. So that's great. But get this voucher purchased. So you are fully 100% committed, because I know how these challenges work. Our attrition rate will probably be over 50%. So we have a lot of people here this morning, which is great, but it's going to fall off. And I know life happens, stuff happens, family emergencies happen. But if you can get that on the calendar, the voucher lasts for a year. So it's not like you're throwing it away after this first few months if you don't use it. All right. Matthew Bean, let's see here. Yep. Schedule your study sessions in your work calendar. Absolutely. This is great feedback here. All right. So preparing for the Magento 2 cloud goal is 1st of February is achievable. That, depending on your experience, if you've, and I'm going to say if you have already built out Magento cloud applications, 1st of February should be plenty fine. The Magento cloud test, I'm going to suggest is probably 5 or 6 out of 10, but it does require some very specialized knowledge. So if you have worked with Magento cloud, you will easily pass. If you haven't, it's going to be pretty tough, but you still might. The Dixit asked about the price increase for certification, and I think all of the tests have now gone up to $295, except for the associate developer, which just stays at $195. So most of the tests are like $265, and then there was a couple that were $295. All of them have been standardized on $295. Hardik asked about professional developer. You can try going for that. Personally, I always recommend going with the associate developer first. But 3 years, if you feel like this 3 years have been a good mix of maintenance, of building new modules, of experience all over Magento, troubleshooting, debugging, then yeah, you probably would be good for that. Kamlesh about the has the front end developer should go for the Magento 2 solution specialist. You definitely could do that. It depends on what's important for you. If you're a developer, though, I would probably stick with the developer line. But solution specialist, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so make sure we get all the answers here done. I would love to ask Magento for a discount code. I've done that in the past. I don't think they have any that they can share. So I unfortunately, I don't think I have any value to offer there, unfortunately. I wish I did, because that would be really nice. Sukumar, yes, about working in Magento 2, worked as a project manager for the company. I would not recommend this professional developer as a project manager. I think you're going to find it's really, really difficult. All right, the associate developer. How difficult is on 1 to 10? I would put that as a 3 out of 10. But here's the thing. The scales are really difficult simply because it's, how do I put this? It's my knowledge versus your knowledge, so I might feel like it's pretty easy comparative to the professional developer, but it might be really hard, or hopefully it's really easy for you. So it's kind of difficult in that way, but just, I would put it as a 3 out of 10. Janice, yes. Jesse, my brother, he wrote the JavaScript study guide. So he's taken that. I have not taken that. From what I understand, it's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Yes, he has done that. So what kind of knowledge required to pass the cloud certification? Good question. The number one thing is you need to have a cloud sandbox. You need to have access to a cloud environment. Please don't use the merchant's environment. But that aside, you need to have access to a cloud sandbox. And past that, it's going to be fairly simple. You're just going to want to work through the study guide, try to understand what's going on, how does this work. But remember, the study guide is pretty much your key on each one of these tests in order for the knowledge necessary to pass it. Mahendra, where can I get the associate project guide? Is it free? Yes, the associate project guide is free. It is in our Slack channel. I posted it there on New Year's Day. If you don't have access to the Slack channel, let me know. And I will, I can send that over to you. I will be putting it up on our website. I've just been a little crazy lately, but I will be putting it up on our website here shortly. But I was also hoping to get some videos put out as well about this too. So my goal is, the whole project guide is divided up into like 7 steps, and I want to create videos for each step. Again, to walk you through what does it take, and to provide some extra commentary about what does it take in order to pass this test. And I think it's going to be really, really helpful. All right, Dejin, the trick questions on the solution specialist. That is a very difficult test, and I'm going to say it is very difficult. I'm trying to think of how I say this. The the multi-store configuration is the most difficult part of that. And actually have me to thank for some of that because I know I wrote at least some of those questions. The challenge is, the thing is here, that that aspect of Magento is foundational to the application itself. So while some of the examples might seem a little bit contrived, because, after all, it's kind of difficult. What do you come up with as examples? But I know a lot of those questions are legit questions from real life situations, and it's a very difficult test. But the multi-store functionality core to Magento 1 and 2, which is amazing considering a lot of the Magento competitors, Shopify, BigCommerce, they're still trying to come up with multi-store functionality. So yeah, it is a little bit, it is difficult test. All right. Dixit. Yes, that is true. So Meet Magento is a way to get if you take the test there, Meet Magento India coming up at the end of this month, early next month, you can get a certification for, I think it's half off if I remember correctly. But also if you do work for a partner, then you can get a discount there. What certification has 10 out of 10 difficulties? All right, well, you got me there. We probably should say that the professional developer would be the 10 out of 10. So that would be what would be the most difficult test. All right. Deepak, if you want to ask your question again, I'm not seeing it, so maybe I did miss it. Bat has a question. I have no prior experience in back-end development. How can I learn UI components easily? That, my friend, I would suggest Vinay Kopp's mage2.tv. It is excellent. It is incredibly good material about UI components. And he will make it so easily understandable for you. That's what happened for me. And I couldn't recommend his material enough. All right. Let's see here. Bambus, how long is the front-end developer certification up to date? Will this certification change with PWA headless technology in the future? Good question. I understand that Magento is coming out with a PWA certification. I do not know exactly when that will be. But I have heard rumors that is in the works. All right. Dimitrik, it's a good question here. What needs to be done when I am met with an unclear question? I am assuming that's talking about on the study guide. All right, so that's what the Slack channel is for. I hope you take advantage of this Slack, because this is the opportunity to be able to ask questions of each other. And if there's something that doesn't make sense, here, maybe I'll have a suggestion. There's a lot of really smart people in this group here, and I'm super excited. So feel free to ask those questions in the Slack. Of course, that's where our good friend Google is there for, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of great opportunities, but I suggest, use Slack. Take advantage of that for solution specialists, where can we get some problems or tasks to resolve to get ready? That is a challenging one, to be really honest. I'm going to suggest that your creativity. Obviously, I have the prep course, but I know that is expensive. And that's my goal in the prep course. I try to come up with a whole bunch of that stuff, but I'm going to suggest it's your creativity. And I wish I had a better answer than that. There just isn't any other information that I'm aware of out there that will be as helpful as, or that will be exactly what you need there. All right. Where can I find some samples of questions on the associate developer? Can we postpone the questions for later if we're not sure? Yes. So when you're taking the exam, you can mark questions for later, and we're going to talk about in upcoming weeks. We're going to talk about how you need to prepare to take this test. So don't worry about that. We'll cover a lot of really good questions about that. Anil asked about what I teach in the gold plan for the solution specialist. That's the same material in there. It's just there's a guarantee on it. So if somehow you fail the test, then we will refund back your money for the basic, same content, same material, same sandbox, same Slack access. But it's in that case you don't have there's no guarantee. Oh, Matthew Bean. Hey, like I said, he's one of the brightest. And he said he'll answer as many questions as he can. So he's on the Slack channel. There's a lot of other really smart people here. So please take advantage of the Slack channel. That's why we have it here. Of course, it's great for chatter and information, but I want to see you all use it to ask your questions. All right. How can we plan certification if we are not good at theory but we are good at logical and implementation? That's a great question. I'm going to suggest that you don't have to worry too much about this, especially on the developer test. Your goal is to get in there and get practical knowledge. So that's why I have the associate developer projects guide, because I want you to go through and build out modules to test your knowledge. Okay, how does this work with UI components? I'm going to get in. I'm going to understand how can I make this happen. And in that case, you're going to gain the necessary knowledge to pass. I think you're going to gain the correct theory, but also the all of the knowledge that you will need in order to pass. Let's see here. A couple more questions. I don't have enough knowledge for certification. Okay, so Neha asked, so if you don't have access or much knowledge about commerce, does having an open source access, does that suffice? I'm going to say yes with two exceptions. First is the solution specialist. I would not recommend taking that test unless you have access to a commerce sandbox, to a commerce environment. So please don't take the test unless you do have access to that, simply because there's a lot of commerce questions on there. Number two would be the Professional Developer Plus. That one as well uses a lot of commerce code, asks questions about commerce. And that one actually is a little bit difficult because there's subjects on there that not even most senior developers touch very often. For example, like customizing target product rules. It's just not really something that we do. They work and it is what it is. So it's not, so having these, how do I say this? So those would be the two areas that, two exceptions, but otherwise open source is fine for everything else. Marek, good question. Will there be some groups for like solution specialist, front-end associate? I was thinking about that the other day, and I think I'm going to do that, especially with your suggestion there, because I think that's going to help keep conversation to a good place. And so I think I will go do that probably today or Monday. Yep, absolutely. Sabrata, exactly. That would be outstanding. I would love that. So I'm going to split the Slack into multiple channels, and feel free to post suggestions, ideas there, because that will be, that's what's necessary. So obviously the study guide directs us to this knowledge, but let's build out projects. Let's build this information around that. So the study guide is the key to get going forward, and then, but that's where we have to use our practical knowledge. We have to dig in. We have to go look through the code. That's how we're going to pass. Very good. All right, I think we are getting close to being done here. One thing I will say is, if you would want to, I'm not going to be pushy on this at all, but if you would want to subscribe here, that'll allow you to be notified of when we're going live in 2 weeks, as well as when we put out new videos. No pressure whatsoever to do that, but if you want to, that would be great. A couple more questions. How can I get a Magento 2 Commerce Sandbox account? So hopefully if you are working with an agency, if you're working with a partner, you would have access to that. Community insiders have that. Full-blown Magento partners have that. That is one advantage of the prep course. This for the solution specialist is that you do get a sandbox account. But otherwise, that's where it's kind of difficult, is on the solution specialist, because there's not a huge amount of capacity beyond what I just shared, those 3 areas, to be able to get access to a commerce account. Yes, Nitesh. So asked about what's going to look like in the future here. So every other Saturday. So today is the 4th. I think the next one will be the 21st. Every other Saturday, we're going to get together at the same time. I know there's a little confusion with regards to times. So actually, I will post an update in our Slack. It'll probably be an hour later, as I think that will match up with the Google Calendar links that you have. But I'll keep you up to date there. So every other Saturday, we're going to get in. We're going to talk about some more information. I'm going to share some things that I've learned, some encouragement, some motivation for you as well. As well as some every week, something to help prepare you for this test. So like we talked about, hopefully this is a good foundation. This is a good starting place. But going forward, we're going to have a lot to talk about as far as continued study suggestions. How can we get these tests passed? So excellent. Well, I'm honestly kind of disappointed to have to say this is done today. This was incredible. It was a great way for me to start out my Saturday. I couldn't think of a better way. So I hope you all have a great rest of your Saturday. I know for some of you on the other side of the world, it's you're closing it up. But your others is just starting it. So I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday, and I look forward to continuing to interact with you over Slack, to continue to interact with you here in 2 weeks, 2 Saturdays from now, when we're going to get in there and we're going to get in. We're going to get these certifications done. Finally closing up here, Matthew asked about, or Matthew said it might be possible to pass cloud without access. I would definitely agree. It's not going to be easy, but I would definitely agree with that. So, all right, very good. Well, it was great being with you, and I hope you have a great Saturday. Take care.